On today's Community Wednesday, let's break down two of my favorite weapons, the Holger and the Finn. I've done stat guides for both of these weapons, and actually, the Finn was the very first weapon that I did a stat guide for Community Wednesday. And as many of you know, the Holger is my favorite weapon in the game, even though it's not that great. So let's break down and compare these two weapons, or actually, three. The Finn, Adverse Finn, and Holger. I'll have all the data up like normal, but since this isn't a stat guide, I will be going through these a little bit faster than usual, just so that we can get straight to the comparisons. If you want to know more about these weapons, just go to my stat guides and the stat guide updates for each of these weapons. So with our normal Finn build, we are concentrating on pure long range. And with the stats, you can definitely see why. Its mobility isn't that great, and its damage is actually pretty bad, but its recoil is near perfect. Its lack of real recoil makes it one of the best weapons for long range, so even though it has one of the worst TTKs in the game, you're going to be hitting every single shot. So if someone's 200 meters away from you out in the open, they stand no chance. But once the enemy starts getting closer than 100 meters and there's more cover, there may be more of a problem. Now, I don't think I ever showed the Adverse Finn stats, so here they are. And as you can tell, pretty much everything changes. The rate of fire, damage profile, and the recoil definitely change. Interestingly though, after the first 30 or 40 shots, its recoil just becomes a giant blob. It does bounce left to right, so you can't use this extremely far. Just remember, you only have 100 rounds in the mag, and your reload time is pretty long, so don't rely on this tactic for extremely long range shots too much. We're not going to go for the longest barrel, and that's because we're not going to get that much range. While you could definitely use this between 70 and 80 meters, it would be better to keep it under that. And this distance is absolutely perfect for its bullet velocity because once it reaches about 70 meters, that's when you're going to have to start leading your target. So you could treat it almost like a very good sniper support weapon. Then we have the Holger. Its mobility is a lot better than the two other weapons. Then its recoil is not as good as the long range Finn, but it's way better than the Adverse Finn. But even though it's not as good as the long range Finn, it is still way better than many of the weapons because it has such little recoil and it's very easy to use. So despite it not having great TTKs, it ends up being an okay weapon. However, if you guys noticed, its bullet velocity is not that great, so you will be leading your shots at longer ranges. So this is what it looks like when we compare all the weapons side by side. The Adverse Finn gets the highest score since it doesn't have any below average stats. Then comes the Holger with above average mobility, great recoil, and below average damage. And then comes the Finn with average mobility, great recoil, and below average damage. Does this make the Adverse Finn the best, then the Holger, and then lastly the Finn? No. Remember, my scoring system likes to favor weapons that are jack of all trades. Weapons that are hyper specialized tend to get really low scores, like sniper rifles. And this is the case for the normal Finn. The normal Finn is one of the most accurate weapons in the game, and you can easily counter snipe with the Finn since it is incredibly accurate. All they need to do is pop a tiny bit of their head out and they're not going to be able to get a shot off. And it will beat a Holger pretty much at long range any day. The Holger though is a decent weapon. If its bullet velocity was better, it would be so much better. It's nice that it's mobile, but it's not as easy to use as the Finn. And if you're playing the extremely long range game, chances are you don't really need all the mobility. You're going to have a good sidearm or SMG at the ready, so that you can easily get around the map and actually do decently in close quarters. Something should be said though about its ADS time and its reload time, since it's great for an LMG, but you could also do the same thing with the Kilo. The one thing that is nice about the Holger is that since you aren't running a barrel, you do have space for an extra attachment. Whether you want an even snappier ADS time, so you use the stock, or maybe you need a little more help while you're learning its recoil pattern, so you need to use a commando foregrip. Or what I do, use FMJ so that nobody behind walls is safe. And then there's the Adverse Finn. It is a great weapon. It lets you be aggressive and it is a jack of all trades gun. It's gonna do really great in almost every situation, except for long range. So maybe if you pair it with a sniper rifle or something for extremely long ranges, this could work really well. Or if you just play in Rebirth, this is a perfect weapon for you. The Finn Adverse problem though is its reload time. It is long and you will need people to cover you when you reload. Maybe if you're on console, you don't need a VLK sight, and you could deal with iron sights, and then you can use sleight of hand. But for PC players, we kinda do need the extra zoom for medium range. And as for any other attachment, we can't afford to lose. If you remove the tack laser suddenly, it's not as great at long range and you lose a ton of ADS time, which makes it unusable up close. Right now, even though its ADS time is kind of extreme, it's okay because of its insanely fast TTKs. And the 100 round belt doesn't increase our reload time, but it does give us 25 extra ammo, which is kind of important for extended gunfights. If you're playing in solos and you're playing with a Fin adverse, maybe you can run with a 75 and sleight of hand, but most people like to play in squads. So what's my recommendation for which of these weapons to run? If you like to be more aggressive, then obviously the Fin adverse. And if you want an extremely easy to use weapon that will just dominate at long ranges, then of course use the normal Fin. But if you just like the G36, then of course just pick the Holger. And honestly, that's the reason that I use it, because from my playstyle, I should probably just be using the normal Fin. But of course, personal choice does go a lot into picking a weapon you like. But the thing is, I know that the Holger is not that good. I won't fight anyone that says other long-range weapons are better than the Holger, because more likely, they are. The Holger theoretically is a great long-range weapon, but once people start moving and you have to start leading your shots, things don't really end up going so well. You have to get a lot of practice in using not so good weapons against really great weapons. And even once you master things like bullet drop and leading times, TTK is still important. So if you took two players of equal skill and gave them two similar weapons like the Grau and the Holger, the Grau user would win every single time. So that was the Fin, Fin Adverse, and Holger. What do you think of these weapons, and do you agree with my recommendations? And as always, if there's any weapon build or part of the game you want to break down, let me know. You may see it on the next Community Wednesday. Thanks for watching.